Bada bum, bada bum, bada 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 bum, bada bum, bada bada bum, bada bum, bada bada bum, bada bum bada bum, bada bum, bada bada bum, bada bum, bada bada bum, bada bum, bada bada bum, bada bum bada bum, bada bum, bada bada bum, bada bum, bada bada bum, bada bum, bada bada bum, bada bum
now.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Marvel What Now podcast. We're breaking down episode 5 of Wandavision, a very special episode. I'm loving these titles. I don't even know what to say. Every time
I feel the same way. I completely agree.
I get frustrated whenever this show comes out just because I'm like, I have to wait one more damn week to watch. They give me answers and then they take those answers back and they propose something else, and it's like, psych, you have to wait another 7 days.
This is such an abusive relationship. I mean, we're getting strung along. Just here you go, just Kevin Feige just giving us the little crumbs week by week. Oh, you want more? Nope, you're not gonna get it. No, I completely agree, my friend. Probably the most mind-blowing episode so far of the season. It definitely has the Mandalorian vibes where it's like, I feel like every episode I'm like, oh my God, that was the best one. Oh my God, that was the best one. Like every single episode I say that about it at the end of one. But this one truly was, I mean, just like you said, there's questions, there's answers, we're in the TV show, we're out of the TV show. We see pretty much every single main cast player the entire time. Just a whole lot going on this week.
And the best thing about the format of this show is there's no chance of a filler episode or something getting tired or running too long. The way it reinvents itself every episode is just incredible.
I feel like as well, we are of that age where like a lot of these shows in some capacity, like I feel like I'm taking a walk through my own life. Like every single episode, it's like, oh yeah, that show. Oh, you remember that? Oh my God, can you believe that they put that in there? And it's just this weird. And then we have like the modern Marvel stuff, which obviously we're obsessed with. So it's just this crazy mix of everything.
I think the best part about the nostalgia of the show for me is, like you just said, we grew up on these shows. So when I watch it and I get the references that they're going for, it's not just these younger people who, oh yeah, I remember Full House. They're aware of
Fuller House on Netflix. That's what they know.
Yeah, exactly. Like when we watch this, it's like, oh my God, like we're not just getting the references. Like for me, the show really does an amazing job of feeling, grabbing that essence of whatever those shows were. I think for this, I don't know about you and like what you think this episode 5 was based on in terms of like what other shows they borrowed from. I was getting major growing pains, Family Ties,
Full House,
80s, yeah, Full House,
late 80s, early 90s, kind of like major network television, like television of the week, like family drama, and then we all fix it at the end. Yeah, I mean, Vision even makes that comment where he's like, the exact thing that we need is going to come through the door. Great, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel that you and I had talked the other day where I said, I get up, like when I was a kid, I used to get up before school and watch Power Rangers, like the first season of Power Rangers before school would start. And I do that with this show. Like I get up at like 6 a.m. I'm usually up early anyway, but I feel like I'm getting up even earlier because I'm like, okay, it's online. Here we go. And I have my coffee and everything. And I'm like ready to go. I feel like I'm a child again. So it definitely has that. You just want to know what happens each week.
Yeah, so the kids were introduced in actually 2 episodes ago at this point, and they start out like babies, and I thought they were going to be maybe that age a little bit longer, but they definitely start to grow up quick, which speed things along.
Wah. Thank you for that.
It's so good.
Things grow up so quickly around here.
Kids, you can't control them.
Oh my God. God. Every line that Agnes says, I feel like I'm like the Da Vinci Code. I feel like I am Tom Hanks trying to like unlock the secret meaning behind what she says.
Oh, I know. I had to, whenever we watch this episode and take notes, like I always have to like write down every line of dialogue that she says. Even actually I thought this was interesting when Vision first shows up and he's carrying one of the twins. He references that he had read Charles Darwin to one of the kids. Descent of Man. I'm not familiar with Descent of Man, but I thought Darwin was sort of a reference to like evolution, survival of the fittest, and I thought that was somewhat of a setup for mutants, like actually calling the twins mutants, them being the next stage in evolution, which I'm not quite sure how that would play considering we don't fully understand them yet, but I think that's definitely setting up mutants.
Oh, there were plenty of potential things that could go in the direction of the X-Men today, and a lot of like shocking, like, oh my gosh, especially when we get to talk about the end today. But I agree with you. We see a lot of, when Wanda comes in with the children in the beginning, they're crying. Both of them are crying. When she and Vision are trying to rock them to sleep, and they have that cute little line about being on a date together. And then obviously Agnes comes in. She can't. In this scene, though, we see Wanda's magic not work. It doesn't work on the children. She tries to make them go to sleep, which in its own way is kind of, you and I aren't parents, so of course we can't judge anything that a parent would do, but it does seem a little like, again, forceful. She's making things happen to even her own kids. But, we see that it doesn't work on Billy and Tommy.
Yeah, and then Agnes has the line, it comes a few minutes later, but she says, kids, you can't control them no matter how hard you try.
And she also says a line that I thought was really, really pointed as well, when she comes in and she's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll take care of it. I'm like the cool aunt. She first off, she calls herself Auntie Agnes, which I think I want to come back to that in a second. But then she also says, I've got a couple of tricks up my sleeve, so it's like, everything she says is always this kind of like pun of like, like wink, wink, like I can do this. You know what I mean? There's always some sort of like mischievousness to the like, kind of like jovial, oblivious way that she kind of throws everything out, and she just seems fun and breezy and unassuming. You know what I mean? It always just seems so personal and connected. But I do always think that there's just something so, everything that she says is a trick. Everything she says is real, but just like in our world, it's like it's true but not true. It's like a half truth in a way.
We got another reference to the unseen Ralph, her husband. I believe she says he can't tame this tiger. So Ralph keeps popping up. Like, will we see him in this show? Who is he? My current theory, although after watching now 5 episodes of this show, I don't know what
who is,
it
I
will
don't know
be,
what's even happening.
But my current theory is, we'll see Ralph later, maybe sooner than I think, but towards the end, and it will be Mephisto, because the line about her being Auntie Agnes, I think that is a very literal comment. Like, I think she is quite literally the sister to one of Wanda's parents.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier, that we think that she is blood relative to Wanda. I don't know if they would go. They pointedly mentioned the parents again for the first time. We found out the name of the parents, and that they, the diet. When Jimmy was giving the kind of, I love when Jimmy called out Hayward when he was like, okay, that was an oversimplification, but anyway, when Jimmy was explaining, kind of giving everyone the viewers, and just kind of like a refresh for us, for like the timeline of Wanda's journey, if you will, of her life, and also kind of like the bigger kind of plot points of her in the MCU. But that's really the first time we've ever heard about her parents. I feel, I can't really remember a reference to really, and they mentioned that her parents died before that, but I felt like them mentioning it now was, it was pointed. Yeah. This was also the first time, Curtis, could you talk about what happened to Agnes when she comes in? When the break in the scene happens?
Yeah, so she has that moment where it's almost like the scene didn't play out the way Wanda's script or whatever you want to call it was. I think in Wanda's head, the scene called for Agnes to come in and help rock the kids to sleep, and Vision sort of like, in his bumbling way, like puts his foot down and like stops that, and she sort of like has this moment of breaking where she's like, okay, do you want to like take that
Well, that
again?
screwed the
Like,
scene up. That's not what was supposed to happen. So she just was like, what? What's happening here? You know what I mean? It was like a play that fell apart, like right in front of us. But there was also this like, I want to say fear in her face when it was not what it was supposed to be. Like, Agnes definitely was looking at her like, oh shit. Like, this is, should I just go back, or what would you like me to do, is essentially what she was saying to her in that moment.
but we've seen where Wanda rewrites history, and it usually manifests in a way that it's like something technical, whether it's a tape rewinding or a skip. And in this moment, there's no like hard breaks. There's nothing like that. It's just Agnes sort
like
of
a rehearsal. Like, it's like a rehearsal that got messed up, and they just are trying to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. So that sort of leads me to believe like that she's in on this, because we saw in episode 3, she's having that conversation with Herb outside the house. And it's like she has this very aware moment, like where Herb's about to say, we're all something. And she sort of like shakes her head no. And then she has a quick line. And then even Herb in that scene, it's like there's no more of the hard cuts, or it's him just like, okay, I'm gonna go. It's not mind control. It's like they're just going back into character. So I don't know if there's something up with those two, but I think that Agnes is aware the whole time, and she's like playing a role in the show
that
to
Wanda
like
sees her
blend
as.
in. Yeah, like she wants to blend in that she's under her control, when really Agnes is, fully aware and somewhat guiding,
and keeping her in this
Wanda.
fantasy that she's in, that she's created.
Absolutely.
And then Wanda,
but just like,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, I think it's just sort of more like camouflage for Agnes as well, like to throw Wanda and the audience as well off the scent.
And she's the only person that they've not identified from the town. Really, they've identified who the people are on the board, except for her. She's also the only person that like can kind of finagle her way out of the moment. Does that make sense? Like, do you know what I mean? She kind of gets away with it. She, in a way, in the moment, can manipulate Wanda to like, oh, it's okay, we could just move on. It's not a big deal. No worries. You know what I mean? And then Wanda's like, oh yeah, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And then that's like, she believes it. It's like it's almost like the easiest lie is the one that's the easiest to believe.
She also seems to be the only one sort of facilitating, to Wanda in this, in Westview. All the other characters, they seem like, if you're a writer writing a show, like problems have to happen. There has to be miscommunication, and that happens with everyone else. But with Agnes, it's like, oh, you have a dog? You need a dog house? I have a dog house. You have crying babies? I have Lavender.
And I'm a babysitter.
Yeah. It's like she's helping her. So I think she definitely wants Wanda to, I don't know what her mission is. She definitely wants to help raise the twins and get them to, reach whatever maturity level that they need to be in.
I also think
reality.
there's a brilliance in Catherine Hahn's performance in that moment when she says the thing about this. You can't control them. If you just look at that as like the corny show moment, and they kind of put like a laugh track moment behind it, and I think they do that to kind of disguise, because in her performance, if you watch the performance and look at it, there's like a longing, there's a pain there, there's like it's a seriousness, and do you know what I mean? So it's like this hidden moment where like she is in the show, but what she actually is feeling while she's like taking a drink, like Jesus Christ, which she just said she wasn't going to have a drink just before that. You know what I mean? Which I also
Mhm.
think she also says the dark liquor, and I also know that's like a old wives' tale. People used to put their liquor on the. I don't know if your parents did that or not. They put liquor on your
Mhm.
your lips when you were a child, but when she says dark liquor, where's the dark liquor so I can control the children? I just everything she says, I'm like, oh my god, it's like the clues are being laid out right in front of you the entire time.
The dark liquor, but also she's like spraying the
Mm-hmm.
lavender, and to me, it does feel sort of like a
Mm-hmm.
witch, performing a
Mm-hmm.
spell. Like the lavender is kind of like, oh, she's using
I have
sage on the
newt.
house, and then like the the dark liquor is like her potion, like some kind of
Blood
elixir.
or something, maybe.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. I mean, God, every line she says has to be broken down. But we had that scene later in the episode where Vision's talking to Norm, and he uses, I assume it's power maybe drawn from the Mind Stone, but he's able to like snap Norm out of that reality, and he becomes aware. And he's talking about he's in so much pain and like he's being tortured. We never quite get that with Agnes. That we in episode 1 where they're eating dinner, like Mr. Hart, he has that moment where it's like anger, and he's like, "Why'd you come here? Like, what are you doing here?" I felt like that in that moment, that person or character is starting to like, they're having those moments of realizing they're being trapped, and that's their anger coming out. But Agnes, I can't quite figure her out, and her being the same way, like just kind of willingly going in and out of character, there's something
Absolutely,
there.
100%. And then you see what happens when he asks the questions, they can't answer the questions where they came from before. Then he gets angrier. Then what happens? Then he starts to choke. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, did she cause that as well too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the doctor's line about sometimes you can never escape, huh? You can never do it. There is a definite difference between the residents of the people who we are confirmed. There is the whole town. It is the whole town that is trapped in this sphere. It's not just a few people. And you had mentioned something earlier, but before we get into the trauma and the pain situation, because that connects back to the very beginning of the episode with Monica, because when we cut back to her and they like interrogated her as soon as she wakes up, she talks about the exact same thing. So it's definitely not a pleasant experience everybody is feeling, but we have to take a pause and talk about, just for like 2 seconds, the intro this week. The intro this week was,
Oh my God.
unbelievable.
I had to go. Whenever I watched the show the first time, I just want to watch it through without pausing. And when I watched that the first time, I had to like pause it because I was like laughing so hard and I was missing things, and like the photos just got, it's like
Oh god, the Vision
like, oh
baby photos. Oh, more Vision child
like
photos.
like I'm a graphic designer, and I mean, when I watch the show, it's great. But to me, I was picturing like, okay, some designer at Marvel was sitting at their desk photoshopping Vision's head onto a baby, and some like janitor or someone like not in the Marvel know like had to walk behind and just be like, what the hell are these people
Wow, they really
working
let the
on?
Marvel
Like,
Cinematic Universe go to shit. Like, wow.
like, I don't even know if you can call that jumping the shark. Like,
No, hysterical. The paintbrush. Oh my god, with like the coloring, just the song, which if you actually notice the lyrics of the song, I don't know if it's an actual Stevie, it sounded like a very Stevie Nicks kind of song. I don't know if they took it, but because the writers are the writers of like Frozen, they're the people who have written all the songs, so I think it actually is a new track. And the lyrics say, "We're making it up as we go along because we've got love," and I think that is more than just a coincidence. So I just wanted to talk about the intro because it was hysterical, and then you also have like the like kind of full housiness to it, which is weird because it's like, I mean, Ashton, he mentioned, he was like, oh my god, she looks like the Olsen twins, but I know it's not the Olsen twins, but it's like we knew the Olsen twins at that baby age, so she looks the same.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's get into the trauma situation. Let's start with the opening when we first see Monica when she wakes up. Go.
Well, I want to touch back on the intro real quick. I actually, and also if I would say whenever you get a chance, check out, just go on YouTube and look up Growing Pains intro, because that for me was like, it was almost 1-to-1 in terms of like where they drew their inspiration, like the photographs and the kids
Those
getting older.
shitty 80
But
television
also,
intro graphics. Oh my god.
don't you diss the 80s.
Yeah, it reminds me of like, what they would show in like a library at school, like they would show they would show you some like trash thing that was like, the most just terrible.
Kirk Cameron is definitely going to be the Mark Hamill level cameo.
If we get a crossover
Elizabeth
of
was
Curt
talking
Cameron from Left Behind, and it's like a Thanos snap situation, but he comes in. We've said, well, look here. First off, we need to brag on ourselves because we've been right about a lot of things that have happened so far, about like kind of predictions that have kind of gone this way. So I think we need to start buying some lottery tickets, or we need to start really. Marvel needs to hire us because we've predicted some of the things that have been appearing. Knock on wood.
It's our probability manipulating
We're like
powers.
Domino and Long Shot of the podcast world.
Who's who?
Oh, we know that I'm Domino. Hello.
Of course.
Okay, so
another line from the intro was, "Forces may try to pull us apart, but nothing can phase me if you're in my heart."
Oh, wow. I mean, hello again. Showing you everything.
The wordplay. When I watch like older Marvel movies, like there's so much action and stuff, but the wordplay in this show is, for me, like top notch, like just perfect. Every line being like a double entendre. Oh, so good. So trauma. Love talking about trauma.
Hey, look, I mean, I think this is pretty much our therapy session anyway, where this is I don't know about you, this is my proxy, so this is how I'm working my things out and just speaking as candidly as I can about one thing. But yeah, I mean, wait, are we talking about Wanda's traumas? Did Wanda's traumas make a comeback?
Wanda's trauma.
So when Monica wakes up in the very beginning of the episode, we kind of hear this overview of, or this like this voiceover of like her being interviewed after that's happening, and she talks about, and Hayward mentions again later on, that she experienced pain. She heard Wanda's voice in her head, and I quote, she says that feeling of keeping her down, it was hopeless, like drowning. It was grief. She specifically says in the very beginning it was grief. And like you mentioned earlier, when we see Norm again, when Vision awakens him, which is kind of, that can be what we can have a shared language what we're talking about there, when he touched him and he woke him up from the the television world, he also immediately was panicked. He thought about which I thought was really crushing. He thought about his sister and his dad, who was apparently, we could assume that he was probably debilitated in some way, and they were actually caregivers for him, and being trapped in this kind of prison while knowing that you're in the prison. It seems like they know that they're in the prison, but they can't do anything about it until that moment happens when they kind of, if we kind of hear it, they get woken up.
And that's got to be Vision using the Mind Stone to have that ability. Like, I don't know what other reason it would be for Vision to like have that power or ability. And I think Wanda literally created the Mind Stone in him. We had talked about Thanos had the line about he had reduced the stones to atoms. Wanda has already destroyed the Mind Stone in Vision's head once, so maybe like her connection to it, like she kind of remembers how to reassemble it, and that's why she can't control Vision. It's why he's becoming more aware. And actually, he had a line after the riff happens between him and Wanda. He says, "We used to be so much of the same mind," and that to me, I don't know how you took it, but I saw that as when she created Vision or something.
Well, they were both creative.
We haven't even talked about that.
Think about it. They did come from their powers manifested from the Mind Stone. So in a way, power, I guess a part of the Wanda is inside of Vision too, in a way, if that makes sense. Like,
that's what I think. I think she like created him, and when the show started, everything was perfect. And so it's not like she brought Vision back. I think she kind of created this new Vision. Like, he is this whole new thing. He was doing everything she requested in this bubble. Then he becomes more real, more aware. And that's like when he starts to feel that separation between her. Like, he's becoming his own
well, yeah, I
conscious
mean, the Mind
entity
Stone
again.
is the
But at the
powerful
same
enough.
time,
Of course, it makes him realize. That's why at the end, when it's crushing when he's like, I don't remember anything before this. What is happening? I'm scared. He's smart enough to know. Wait a minute. I know that we were like the Avengers and stuff, and you can't hide your powers. But like, wait a minute. What happened before we came here? You know what I mean? Like, it's like the Mind Stone is so. If she recreates it, you know what I mean? Like, okay, let's talk about this. So we find it. I think we find it a very crucial point of information here in this episode when Hayward shows Monica that the Wanda breaking into. We find out a couple of things very, very, very quickly. We find out that Sword has Vision's body. So post Infinity War, at least 5 years now after, Sword has acquired his body. So maybe I guess we're assuming that Shuri could not. Maybe she didn't work on it. Maybe she couldn't put him back together or whatever. But somehow Sword has gotten the body back.
she was also snapped away, so she wasn't
To
even
work
able
on
to,
it. Exactly. So
exactly.
Great point. So when Wanda comes back, we see her later on in the episode when she walks through the barrier, which just absolutely gave me chills when that moment happened. Such an amazing moment. Also revealed us to her that, again, she knows that this is happening. But when she comes out of the barrier to throw the drone back, she's in the costume that she's in from Avengers Endgame. So if what you had mentioned earlier in the way where and that was a plot point in Avengers Infinity War when Vision's like, you can destroy it. You are the person who can do it. So again, we talked about this before. I think she also is the person who can put it back together. She can put it back together, and her powers allow her to do that as well too. So if Vision's waking up, and Darcy and them as well, and Jimmy, they all mention to her that she's showing powers that we've never even seen her have even close to the capability of. And then Monica had that really cool line about, wait a minute, she was going to take Thanos down before he called in a big airstrike. They gave, her and Captain Marvel both some love. So Monica also looked very strange to me when she said when Jimmy mentioned Captain Marvel. She was looking away from Jimmy, and when he said Captain Marvel, she actually pointedly said, well, that's not who we're talking about, and she moved forward, and it did seem like there was some sadness there. So maybe their relationship isn't as kind of like rosy as we wish that it was, or as idealistic as it left the last. Maybe that was the last time Monica saw Carol, was when she flew away.
Yeah, maybe she hasn't seen her in years. Like, who knows? Like, because she obviously, they have this very personal connection. Carol, knew her when she was a little girl.
Best friend with her mom,
and now she's and like now she's who knows where. Maybe she just feels plain old abandoned.
Obviously Captain Marvel's been around.
Like, hey, you're my
Captain Marvel
family.
Saved the world.
Like,
she's been around a couple different times. She fought against Thanos, but they maybe have not had any sort of interaction.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I fully support you flying around the universe saving people, but maybe
you promised my mom
maybe
you'd be in my life. Yeah. I get it.
So
Darcy,
they're so good at like just building those little moments, like just a quick throwaway line, but then you could like turn that into a whole other episode, and it totally or movie connects
back
something.
to an organic moment from something in the past too. That does track. That's kind of like the thing where I said before, where like you kind of have to do the work there, but it makes sense. Like, oh well, Carol hasn't been around as much. She just hasn't seen her for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's kind of the same It's kind of the same argument Carol and Monica have in Captain Marvel. That's what Monica says. She's like, you left me. I thought you were dead, and you just have been flying around saving the world, and you never came back to tell me you were alive. It's almost like Carol's repeating the same mistakes with Monica. That's just a lot of inference. But I do that could I just see that could be tracking. But there's definitely a moment, and she pointedly turned the conversation away, and she didn't mention Captain Marvel when she talked about how, you know, like who could kick Thanos' butt. So I thought it was cool that Darcy was, you know, kind of fangirled out with Monica. But then I also have a question for you: is that if Darcy knows who she is, what has Monica done that she knows who she is? Does that make sense?
That's a good question. I mean, that could be something they set up later on. If I remember, I think the first episode not the first episode, but when we you know, learn a little bit more about Sword in that episode where Wanda's talking to Tyler, I think they're talking about astronaut missions, and I think Monica sort of poses the question. So it's very possible she's early, you know, like space explorer. Maybe
I can see
you
that.
know, her mom was a test pilot, so
That's
maybe
true.
she carried that, and you know, she's just testing all kinds of space vehicles. Who knows? Maybe she even worked with. Maybe there'll be like a Reed Richards reference.
Well, when she comes back the first time, one of the that makes sense. See, one of the things that Hayward says to her, he's like, "Oh, it's a terrestrial mission." So I guess that's implying that she's been on extraterrestrial missions.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
He says she's grounded. So, but yeah, there's definitely still some kind of like feuding or abandonment feelings that she's having towards Carol, which, you know, like she knew Carol as a little girl. So even though she's an adult, like it's very possible that she just has still hanging on to those like childhood feelings of, you were my family. You were like my second mom, my aunt,
hero,
whatever. You abandoned me. Yeah.
You were my super girl. You literally like the most inspiring thing ever. When you flew off into the space, it was like, I want to be that one day. Hopefully she's going to. Hopefully she's going to be very soon.
I think that's definitely going to happen.
Oh, they're totally laying the groundwork in every way.
That last episode will be insane.
Let's see
the scene. So I think the whole story with the dog was very telling. It was very 80s, very sitcom-y, you know, a sad moment, but like the family pulls through. But I think it was setting up a very crucial hint, which is Wanda can't bring people or things back from the dead.
Yes. Do you think in that moment she was first off, we got to go back. We have to talk about the reveal of the boys. I mean, the reveal of the boys as children was I mean, Ashton gasped at it when he saw it. I mean, it was such it just had that same moment where it's like, oh my god. And then of course they play the laugh track or the you know, the voice track of like, oh. It's like you know, it's that typical, you know, late 80s 90s after school special show where it's like everything just ends perfectly.
The reveal of the boys was it's so much fun, and you definitely get like Full House vibes, not just from the Olsen twins, but didn't they even have like Uncle Jesse has twins, I think.
He's got the two boys. Yeah. Oh, how dare you? Of course he's got the two twins.
Zach and Cody, something like that. I'm not sure.
Well, talk about that crossover. Zach and Cody meets Mary Kate and Ashley.
Oh my god, we're not ready.
That's the Secret War. That's what's gonna happen in Secret Wars. Oh gosh. Okay, so the dog. I do agree with you about the dog. You know, the Vision's dog is called Sparky in the comics, so I think that was a little kind of a wink towards the dog. And I know that the dog, the kids go, oh, he's scared when he starts to bark. But what does he start to bark at? He starts to bark when the drone comes into the world. I don't think that he's scared of the bark. I think the dog is barking to like protect them from. Do you know what I mean?
From like intruders outside, infections to the reality or whatever.
Agnes also says a very pointed line about the dog, where she's like, oh, well, I certainly hope it doesn't get any bigger, or let's hope this dog stays the same size. She says something like that, and I'm going, is this dog like Cerberus? Is this dog like literally the dog of the devil? Like, and that's which also tracks. That's why it loves the kids. If the child of Satan or Mephisto, if you will, excuse me, then that's why he's like, oh, we love the kids. The kids are great.
That's yeah. I think that would be really interesting. The connection with like the devil dog.
Mm-hmm. We're jumping around here a lot, but there's just so much that's happened in the episode.
How can you not with this
We have to talk about Monica texts someone to help them out. Who could that possibly be? She actually says it's a neurospace engineer. That's the words that she used. I have no idea who that possibly could be.
I don't know. Ooh, also, there's so much happened. There's like, it's impossible to not jump around. But even in the earlier in the episode, Monica gets a brain scan and like, oh, the machine's broken. Like, but was the machine broken? Like, what was up with that scan? What is Wanda doing? Is she? I don't know what the scan was supposed to show, but like, if you go into that reality and you come out, like
everything isn't as it seems. It just what we saw with her clothing as well, where she does just rewrite it to be something new and a little bit of something that was. if that makes sense.
I think Wanda like truly thinks she has like no bad intentions. She's not harming anyone, but there are very real, like unconsidered consequences. Like you said, Norm, being a caregiver for his father, like, okay, she didn't trap the father, but who's, giving care to the dad now. Like there's going to be huge consequences, I think.
Darcy mentions the hex shape, which Scarlet Witch is sometimes referred to as the hex witch. In the comics, it's also referred to the hexagonal shape of the actual powers that's happening as well, which we see also in the credits. It seems like a lot of the things in the credits are very hexagonal shaped too. Darcy also specifically mentioned that her powers come from the Infinity Stone. She says that in the episode. So, again, it's like the Infinity Stone connection, there's going to be something that happens with that happens.
Speaking of Darcy, we also got a scene where we see Jimmy Woo carrying in coffee. So Darcy finally got that cup of coffee she was asking for.
Talk about the through line. I mean, Jimmy is everywhere.
Okay. So I know there's no shortage of things to jump about, but let's sort of like start to get to the end where Wanda's like walking. She exits the barrier. And that was like a very, you said it earlier, like very scary, terrifying, but also any theory we had that Wanda is being controlled, you could still make the argument that, that's happening in some way, but also she is very aware of what's happening, what she's doing. And I mean, she's just drawing that line in the sand, like, hey, don't cross me.
God, when she walks out of that barrier, man, oh my God, just chills, just absolute chills. Such a great moment. I thought it was really interesting too that, and not surprising, of course, I mean, come on, let's be honest who we're talking about, but Sword tries to make the kill immediately, so I think that is another thing that's a more telling situation about how Sword is going to react to these sentient weapons. I think they've always seen Wanda as a threat the entire time, and that they only even entertained Monica just to see what the hell was going on here, and then that's blew up completely in their face. When
I was definitely
go ahead.
I was definitely getting like Alexander Pierce vibes from director Hayward. But
there's that line earlier when Jimmy walks away and he's like talking under his breath to Kat, and he's like, "Wow, I didn't know he was such a," and then it cuts right over and he goes, "Terrorist," and I'm going, "Okay, well here we go, Winter Soldier 2, it's going to be in Sword." We've got crazy people in Sword.
Like, she's been radicalized.
He was more antagonistic this episode than he has before, and he did make decisions that clearly are go against a lot of people's. Certainly Monica's opinion about what's happening in the situation. He just wants to take them down.
Yeah, I mean, like, even when he's talking about Lagos, which, we'll have to talk about the ad as well. Jesus. But he's talking with Jimmy, and I think that point of the conversation was Jimmy's trying to be like, okay, she was a bad guy, now she's a good guy, like she's on our side. And Hayward's like, hey, even when she's on our, like, it doesn't matter what side she's on, she's destructive.
It's a new
like,
kind of version of the Sokovia Accords.
She's not, yeah, like if she's not dangerous intentionally, like she is a threat just by nature of her powers.
If she's helping us, thanks. If not, we're taking her down.
Yeah. Which we had talked about this in private earlier, but could Hayward possibly be set up to the kind of like Senator Kelly role of taking down mutants, some kind of mutant registration act after this, kind of like
just in general,
Sokovia Accords, like round 2 kind of thing.
Possibly powered people in general.
Yeah, and enhanced, I think, is like the word that gets thrown around the MCU a lot.
Well, now they can use mutants, so it's possible. Oh my gosh, when she is basically when she says when she steps out of the barrier and she says, "Stay out of my home." Again, she's wearing the same exact outfit that she had on in Endgame. And I believe would be the same outfit that she had on when she invaded the sword base, which, I mean, Ashton actually pointed this out. I didn't even notice this, that when you see Vision in the table, he's in like 50 different parts. So imagine how traumatizing that would be for her too, to go and steal him, and he's he's Tin Man out here,
Oh, I know, like, how would you not break? Be like, oh, that's my boyfriend you just disassembled on the table.
I mean, we totally have this like a Weekend at Bernie's situation going on. Like, Wanda is flipping around and she's got Vision's dead corpse, and she's like, here we go, we're gonna go play family.
The very first scene of this show is Wanda and Vision driving into Westview for the first time, and it's along that same road that Monica and Jimmy first met on. So what I think is kind of happening is she went in, she stole Vision's body, and I don't know if she was like lured to Westview. Like, maybe she can't control Wanda, but she can manipulate the surroundings around her and like get her to go to places where that she wants her to go to, do the things that she wants her to go to. And like, so maybe as Wanda and Vision are driving and they cross that barrier into Westview, Wanda doesn't even know what's happening, but she like just accepts it. So yeah. So when the show starts, like, I think we will get a scene later on that shows Wanda and Vision's disassembled body, like in a car driving along that road straight to Westview.
Is Marvel going to go there?
That's when the show starts.
Is Marvel going to do that? Are they going to go there?
I don't know. This show has like some dark moments. Like, I hope so. That when the scene from episode 3 where Wanda turns around and you see Vision dead with the hole in his head, like, that was like jump scary and terrifying. And I think there'll be more moments.
I hope
like
so.
that,
I hope so. I
sure.
do hope that they go there. I definitely think the ending is going to be crushing. I definitely think the ending is going to be very, 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 very crushing.
Just the tone of the show, I can't see them not like taking
going there and really consequence. The biggest criticism of the Marvel universe is that there's no consequence. I think this is a perfect opportunity to show consequence.
It's all. I mean, the difference between like the DC movies, Superman died, and you, even before the movie's over, you get that post-credit scene where the rocks are flying, they're like lifting off his casket, and you're like, oh, of course Superman's not dead, like Superman's back. But what I love about Marvel is they're like, no, Vision dead is dead, but let us take up an entire season to tell that story. And it's not just, oh, he's magically back. It's like, how can you deal with the trauma around it? And the whole show is just insane at taking chances, and I really applaud them. So many times when I watch this show, I just have to pause and look at the decor, like the set decoration, just because everything is
it does feel really big budget too. Ashton mentioned that as well. He was like, this show feels like they put a lot of money into it. It does even just the small tricks, like when Paul Bettany, like when he hides his face and he just turns, he's like, I was hiding my face in the pillow. Like even just a small trick like that, it's simple, but it's done really, really, really well. I mean, come on, we have to keep going back to the moment. There's so much that happens from the barrier moment on. It just is like boom, 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 boom. You know, we see her basically lay down the law that, you know, you're not gonna come in here anymore. That this is her place. She's not going to give any more warnings. There's also a really good moment between her and Monica where Monica says, you know in some way that I'm not against you, that I am not trying to hurt you. You can feel that in your body. So you had mentioned earlier, I actually think that both things are happening, and we mentioned this from the beginning, that it is a willful illusion that's being created, but Wanda is being manipulated by somebody, because before the ending, which we have to just spend a moment on the ending, right before that though, when she and Vision are arguing and they literally start to fight, and they, you know, the cool moment they start to kind of fly at each other, she said it, she goes, you know, I don't remember this even started. I don't even remember how this even started. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, whenever we find out what happens prior to Westview, which I do think that we are going to find out, that is going to be the key of like who is doing this to her or tricked her into creating this reality.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of setup. She's aware of what's happening, but yeah, there's some kind of missing piece that will hopefully wrap everything up nicely.
I want to mention one thing really quickly that I think is something this is kind of the first labeling of this, the Maximov anomaly. You know, Marvel's famous for having twins and their weird connection in the comics. There is the you know, the Von Strucker twins, who are mutants, that they have powers that are, you know, there's North Star and Aurora. They have powers that, you know, kind of combine when they come together. It's like Wonder Twins activate. You know, there's always twins. Always, you know, the twins are weird. Twins are weird. Weird things happen with twins. So I think they're going to continue that as well too. But, you know, Vision specifically asks her, what is the Maximov anomaly? You know, he finds it out from the email. And in the email, because I watched the episode 3 times today, yes, everyone shut up. I have no life. He receives that in the email that talks about Darcy's notes. So I don't know if they're just talking about the Maximov anomaly being the barrier situation happening, and that's what Darcy's calling it right now. Like, that's literally the situation that we're in, is the Maximov anomaly, or if that's like something that is about their family line that could connect back to Agnes, is what we talked about why they're special, why the Mind Stone worked on them in the first place, all that kind of stuff. But I do think that is purposely mentioned and will come back up again.
So let's talk about that last scene with the big cameo.
My brain is broken,
and I'm gonna tie this into sort of our last big question, because it is a big setup moving forward. But so there's the knock at the door, and you know, Wanda says, she even says like, "Oh, I don't know who that is," or I'm not doing this.
I didn't create this. She says to Vision, I didn't make this happen. And he's like, and he doesn't believe her. And that's another thing we go back and forth with our idea about, you know, there are parts that she can make happen and things that she is not making happen that are just being thrown into the situation to like fix the show or whatever.
Yeah, so that she goes to answer the door, and shocker, it's Evan Peters from as Quicksilver, playing the cool uncle.
Uncle Jesse, say it. We were right. Everywhere you look, everywhere. I mean, he literally did everything except say "have mercy." You know what I mean? He's got the jacket, he's got the hair, which he did have the Aaron Taylor Johnson hair. It looked like him from the back. They purposely kind of threw you off of that, and in a way, Wanda, I feel like, was surprised, but I mean, Elizabeth Olsen just crushed it in this moment of like, she knew who he was, but it's like, she says it, when she says it, she goes, Pietro? It is like, is it you? Like, does that make sense? But that question, is it you, is very, 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 very pointed.
And Darcy says like, oh, he was recast, or she recast him.
She recast Pietro? Like, she's even mind blown about it. Like, she changed what her brother looks like, which is a funny kind of meta line. I mean, that line was hysterical as well too, but it also is too where they're making a point where like he is purposely, he looks different than Aaron Taylor Johnson.
So I gotta ask, what now?
Oh my God, man. Okay, we talked about this. I think he is going to be the kind of like lovable brother that causes trouble in the life, if that makes sense. Like, I could even see them like maybe trying to drive a wedge between Vision, using Quicksilver to drive a wedge between Vision and Wanda. Like, oh, you don't need this loser. You can do this on your own. You're the real boss here, because we're moving into different phases of, you know what I mean, like women power and that kind of stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying. I could just see them if I don't know if it's gonna be the real. You and I talked about it. It'd be cool if the X-Men movies, the Fox X-Men movies, were like movies in the Marvel universe. Because like, where is he coming from? Are like Mephisto and Agnes like the stagehands in the background just like throwing props, and like I just imagine them like, you know, this like silly like, oh my, they're like in a closet like trying to throwing things out. You know what I imagine? They're like trying to, well, here's a baby and here's the dog and here's a doghouse. But it's Mephisto and Agnes, this like silliness. But it's like, did they pull him from another reality? Is it actually the X-Men Quicksilver? Is he aware of what's happening? Is he trapped in his own way? I really, really have no idea. But the question you asked me is, what now? I'm going to keep it long but short. I'm going to say that Vision next week is going to, it's going to be antagonistic between him and Vision, between Quicksilver and Vision. And Vision is going to try to break out, and it's going to further go back to him, like going back to Pietro's point of like, here he's the one causing all the problems. He's the one causing all the problems. You think it's anybody else, but it's actually him. And I think he's going to cause a rift between the two of them.
You took the words out of my mouth. Like I couldn't agree more. I think it seems like very timely that he shows up right when, you know, Vision's trying to convince Wanda that, you know, what she's doing isn't right. And then, oh, what a perfect distraction. And who could it be but her long lost brother?
Which he literally says,
like,
long lost brother coming to, you know.
So whoever's like behind all this, really pulling the strings, they want to keep Wanda distracted. They want to keep Wanda happy. And I think they're kind of like, okay, we're going to like write out Vision. And
yes, perfect. They're gonna write Vision out of the show. Yes,
they're gonna, and I think, you know, with the dog, it set up the rule that she can't just bring anyone back from the dead. That would be too easy moving forward, because why wouldn't she bring back Tony and you know, Black Widow and all that? So I think they want her brother there as the support to keep the reality going and stuff, but they can't bring back Aaron Taylor Johnson because he's dead and they don't have the body. And
if she sees the real him and she creates the real him, he could also do the same thing as Vision. Like, Wanda, what is this? This isn't our life. So I agree with you. I completely agree. That's the reason why he looks different, is because it's the same thing with Vision. If she sees the real one will become real and realize that what they're doing is not right. You know, like, this isn't where we're from. This isn't what we do. This isn't. I don't get this.
So we know that the next Doctor Strange is Multiverse of Madness, which I think will, you know, tie in with the Fox acquisition and bringing all these characters together. But with Aaron Taylor Johnson dead, I think Mephisto or Agnes, whoever's doing this, you know, kind of pulled a Rick and Morty, and they're like, okay, we can't bring the real one back. We're going to go to this other dimension / reality, pluck that Quicksilver out of that timeline, the same way they did with the you know, Infinity Stones in Endgame. Like, oh, we're gonna go here, pluck this out, and put it over here. And that's what they're doing, and it works on, you know, two levels. They brought back Quicksilver, but also Evan Peters was, you know, like such an amazing part of those movies. Not just his character and acting, but just the way they visualized his powers. Like, why wouldn't they want to bring that into the MCU? So I think he'll be around to stay. Hopefully.
Hopefully. I mean, I don't know. Again, it's like, what are they going to do with that? I really have no idea. I have no prediction. Ashton asked me as well. He's like, is it going to be X-Men? Is this the first like crossover? I don't know. You can piece that together with some other things that have happened. Kevin Feige, Patrick Stewart had an interview very recently where he said that he had a meeting with Kevin Feige about Professor X. So you know what I mean? There's talk, and they're bringing all these other people back. Like, I feel like Kevin Feige is going to honor those past films. He's not going to like flip off, and that's it's a bigger person thing to do. He's not going to flip off the past. So maybe they're going to try to find a way to make it fun and to work, if that makes sense. I don't know how, but it could definitely be possible.
I think that's definitely going to happen. Vision's gonna. I use the word wedge, and I think that's like perfect. What's going to happen? Like, Quicksilver's gonna, try to drive Wanda away from Vision, and especially as the eras progress. So this episode, I would say, was the 80s. I think the next one's going to be the 90s, and then we'll have like the Modern Family one after that. But if they do go down this route of it's starting in the 50s and it's the perfect couple and everything's perfect, and then as you start to get closer to modern day, maybe you can start to introduce like, oh, the parents aren't together anymore, and like divorce is much more like normalized. So that's gonna play in as well. Like, maybe Vision and Wanda like aren't even together at some point in the next episode. Maybe Vision has another girlfriend. Like, who knows? But the Modern Family inspired episode, I think, will be right before like the climax of the season and the big battle, and it'll just be like, okay, Wanda's like stressed and exhausted, the kids are like teenagers in a nightmare, everyone's running around, just so much disarray, and like, what is the family dynamic, why are mom and dad fighting all the time?
What if they introduce some sort of new love interest that's possibly the like Ralph, or the, you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of like in, and if they can push Vision out of her brain, that's the way that, if they can get Vision out, and if they can use Pietro to manipulate that, I could see them using Pietro as him being like, what are you doing? This isn't our, because he's like the wild child, he's like I'm the rebel, I'm the roustabout, I've been all over the world. I could see her being like, you're better than this. You're all just making sandwiches, and you know what I mean, all this like this kind of like suburban wife kind of stuff. I could see him using that, and then like turning that Vision wants to, he just wants to keep you in this box and all this kind of stuff. He just wants to keep you just where you are. Oh my god, dude. Ugh, I just the possibilities.
I can't believe I watched it this morning and I have to wait
another week. It's the longest week ever.
Why did Disney Plus have to become a thing? Why couldn't they release WandaVision on Netflix and it's just boom, here's the entire season, watch it in a day?
Well, then we couldn't have our podcast, so I don't want that to happen. No, but I do think it's actually a smarter decision to do it the way they're doing it. Because it keeps you wanting more. It's just as like, it is that the conversation about it is continuing further. It's not just like in one day everybody's like, remember what happened at the end? Oh my god! And you haven't talked about anything at all that happened up until that. You just talk about like the crazy moment. You don't talk about the moments that lead up to that. So I appreciate what they're doing here, and I like this.
As much as I complain about it, I love it. It's working so well, and cannot wait for next episode, which I think will be the Halloween episode, which there's spoilers floating around and leaks already coming out about it, which I know you and I have seen.
We have seen them, and we know about that, but we're not going to talk about that this week. It's just we'll incorporate all that next week, and we're just excited to see everything come together.
Can't wait. So thanks for sticking around, and we will see you next time.
Another episode in the bag.
Bye. Hey guys, thanks for listening to Marvel What Now podcast. This is Curt. For more theories and custom artwork, you can follow on social media at Marvel What Now.
And I am Peyton, and for more pictures of me shirtless and just general buffoonery, you can find me on Instagram at P4Peyton, Peyton. Be sure to like and subscribe at the bottom, and we will see you when we see you, because we owe you nothing.